Hi, my name is Arjun and welcome to ENERGIZE, the tech revolution. Today we have a very special guest amongst us. Akash Sharma, Director of Product Innovation at ENERGIZE's Ventures Division, is a trailblazer in technology, data, and energy innovation. Leading generative AI strategy across ENERGIZE's portfolio, he's revolutionizing the energy sector with cutting-edge decision intelligence solutions. With over a decade of experience spanning the entire energy industry and advanced degrees from top universities, Akash is an internationally recognized thought leader in digital transformation. His research, cited over 130 times, and regular contributions to industry publications showcases his expertise. Akash's unique blend of energy industry knowledge and data analytics skills positions him at the forefront of AI-driven solutions, optimizing costs and accelerating the energy transition. Welcome to the show, Akash.
Thank you so much, Arjun, for having me.
Absolutely, Akash. So, Akash, before we dive into your professional journey, would love to learn more about the inspiration behind your educational background. You have a bachelor's and a master's in petroleum engineering and a master's in analytics, and you're part of various petroleum engineering societies. What is it about petroleum engineering that motivated you to pursue an education in this field?
Yeah, so man, like ever since I was a kid and I'd start like going outside the curriculum, I had a lot of interest in geology and like earth sciences. There was just, I guess, as a kid, something about like volcanoes and like how the earth works that was really exciting to me. And then as I started to learn more about it and grow and look at the different options available to me, I also really enjoyed like the application side of things and the mathematics side of things. So I think as I was picking a career in a direction to want to go in, I ended up picking petroleum engineering because of it sort of fit those criteria. So it's very applied science. It's very related to earth sciences, which I like. And then after my first degree, when I decided to do a second degree and continue in that, a big part of that decision was that energy is so unique in the fact that individual geopolitical decisions happening 8,000 miles away can have an impact on how you and I view what happens in our day, right? There are very few industries that have that global and ubiquitous of an impact, right? And so there was something about that, the machinations of this industry that truly works on a global scale, that was really, really interesting to me. And so I continued in that space and got a lot of great exposure, worked under some really incredible professors at the University of Houston. And then I graduated right when the shale revolution was in its peak, right? Like that's about 2015. I finished my master's, and then there was so much development happening in that space. And something that shifted very critically in that stage, especially when it came to development styles, was that shale development made oil and gas development into much more of a statistical effort, right? We went from like 4 wells in an asset to 400 wells on an asset and very factory style development, right? And so what that led to is increasingly more and more of my work and my analysis required improving not just my understanding of physics and petroleum engineering, but also stats and numbers and all of those things. And that's where I leaned further and further into the data science and machine learning side of spaces. And then during COVID, I was fortunate enough to be accepted at Georgia Tech for that program because I wanted to get more structured of an education around me. And that's why I ended up doing that degree. So it was mostly just pursuing the areas of interest that sort of I had in that stage and where I saw the industry going.
That is amazing to hear, and thank you so much for sharing that, Akash. Now, in terms of your professional journey, having held various engineering roles in petroleum engineering, production engineering, reservoir engineering, you eventually made your way into a product leadership role. So, could you share more about your inspiration and excitement for product management and leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. But honestly, there is an aspect of this which I think may be a little disappointing to you and your listeners, because that is a part of the transition that I didn't really plan for. Like, there was not a stage in my life where I was like, you know what, I want to be a product manager. Like, that wasn't ever an objective. I have, being an engineer and like a lot of engineers like yourself, we like solving problems, and I always enjoyed solving problems, right? And when you look at an idea and you want to create a solution around it, progressively as you're working for, especially on the software side, and that's where I was working at Enverus, the in a tech organization, as you solve problems, you can then go and tackle bigger and bigger problems, right? Like And at a certain point, you individually can't solve a problem above a certain scale, right? That's where you are required to work with a team, right? And there's nobody in the world who can claim any of their successes purely their own. Like, I have been very, very fortunate to be surrounded by some really incredible and smart people, and having the opportunity to work with them has really helped me design my career. But moving from engineering to product leadership was purely a factor of my desire to go and find and solve new problems. And as I saw myself in these teams that were around me, I found that the best role my skill set and my ability could fit just happened to be in the product space. So it was a bit of a happenstance, but the motivation was always like, how do we find the next problem? How do we solve it? And how can I best contribute to the team that's going to be needed to solve it?
Thank you for sharing that, Akash. Now, in Envirus, currently you're leading the product innovation team and the innovation lab. So could you share more about your role, and what exactly is an innovation lab, and what does your typical day look like, and who are like the stakeholders you typically interact with?
Absolutely, man. This is a topic that's really close to my heart, because it was a very concerted effort, right? And Envirus as an organization has grown through, it's gone through a dramatic transformation. When I joined the company, there were a couple of hundred people. We were a small tech shop out of Austin, and since then, we've now grown to the largest and fastest growing energy focused tech firm in the world. And what that has allowed us to do is truly expand our reach and truly connect end-to-end solutions. But as I was going, as I was contributing and helping through this journey, one of the things that I realized was the same thing that I mentioned in the last thing, right? Where is the next problem to solve? And increasingly, when you become the industry leader, it's very, when you become an industry leader, it becomes very clear how you're going to solve end-to-end problems, right? But there are always these niche issues that keep on coming up. There's a new way, a new challenge around production optimization, let's say, or a new issue with back office processing. I'd already worked in roles where I wasn't necessarily focused only on subsurface. So what I wanted to do was, I wanted our organization to have a space and have an ecosystem where we can test all ideas, right? It's not possible for any organization to actually evaluate every idea, because that's very cost prohibitive, right? But the theory was that if I could create a small team whose objective is to fail 90% of the time almost, but then find those 10% ideas that we are not able to find because of the size and scale of the machine, then we could have a meaningful impact, not just on our organization, but how the solutions we bring to the industry. And that's where my current role comes in, right? We started the Ventures Group a couple of years ago. Our focus has been since then finding the ideas that have any legs. We will evaluate it. And our focus has always been, how do you take that idea? How do you create a prototype? And how do you get customer feedback on it, right? So the way we've structured it a lot internally has to do with the progression of those ideas and those products that come within. And my role has essentially is the product lead of that. So all the interactions that need to happen with customers, development, our internal stakeholders, leadership, all of those, it's my role and responsibility to coordinate in that space.
In your role in the innovation lab, what is your level of collaboration with the core product management team in Envirus? Could you share more on that?
Oh, for sure. That is so. Let me give you another perspective of this, right? So the innovation lab, think of it as a VC arm within the organization, within a product team, right? We have within our core product organization function a early stage product team as well. So they are, the way we look at it, sorry, let me rephrase that. The innovation lab is like the angel investors. That group is the VC, and then the core product team is the private equity group, right? And the way we think about it is, my team will look and evaluate a lot of ideas. We will partner with the early development team, or sometimes directly with the main team. And the idea almost is that I have to sell them on the product. I'm almost trying to exit this product from my team to their team. And we do look at KPIs in that manner. We look at KPIs and how VC companies would evaluate, like, is this product getting usage? What are its limitations? What is its white space capacity, right? All of those metrics that you would have when you're evaluating if you should take a product from VC to PE, we look at all of those internally, right? So the objective is always to work very, very closely with the core product management team. Because the other thing is, we don't want to work on ideas that are on their roadmap already, right? If there's a feature or enhancement that they're going to work on in 3 months, it's a waste of everybody's time if we also create a prototype about it. So we're always in tandem with them, working with them. And the idea is that if we think an idea has legs after we've done some validation, then we partner with them and then have to convince them that it actually is a good idea.
Thank you so much for sharing, Akash. That was very helpful. Now, a big part of your role is the incorporation of generative AI in products to drive business value and to benefit our customers. Could you share some of the generative AI use cases that you've incorporated in your products and what type of business value and sort of successes your customers have received?
Definitely. So, as an organization, as a team, we've been looking at a lot of different ideas. But once generative AI became a mainstay and we wanted to truly evaluate its B2B potential, a big part of our team's manifesto, so to speak, shifted towards generative AI, right? So we were still operating in the way we look at things and our style of operation didn't change, but we were trying to identify, will this technology fit into our existing product roadmap, right? And so a big part of our work right now is creating new products and solutions that have generative AI built into it. But a core fundamental understanding that we work with is that we are not going to do generative AI for the sake of generative AI, right? Buzzwords don't really last. True product value is what persists over time. So I work a lot with internal product managers to better understand what their product is doing. Every product manager understands the strength and weakness of their products, right? And so my team's objective is to look at certain areas, discuss with different product and tech leaders across the company, and see if there are weaknesses in their products currently or there are challenges in how the users are experiencing those products that can be resolved by generative AI, right? And if there are, then we'll go through the process of prototyping, developing, testing, and evaluating, right? The first one that we released a couple of months ago, I'll give you an example of that, was our Instant Analyst product. And the Instant Analyst product we released specifically in our ENERGIZE Intelligence Solutions. So ENERGIZE Intelligence Solutions came from our acquisition of RS Energy Group. These two companies merged in 2020. And RS Energy was the stalwart of energy research, especially the financial services sector. They're based out of Calgary, and they would do amazing, incredible research in areas and helping investors specifically guide the sort of world of energy. But the amount of research they publish is pretty substantial. It's really good, but it is about, anywhere between 10 to 40 articles a week, a day. A lot of it's publications, but even including research. And what we heard from a lot of our customers talking to the product managers internally was that they love the research, they love the value it brings, but I can never keep up. There is so much content, right? I can never keep up with all the things that have been said. And we also heard other use cases where one of our customers is the managing partner of a private equity group who told me that there have been multiple times where I've read a very interesting thing in one of y'all's reports. And then a week later, I'm like, oh yeah, there was this completion design trend that Enverus report talked about, but then I couldn't find that report, right? Because the vault has 200,000 reports, right? It gets difficult to find specific things, right? And this was a problem that was very, very specific it was ready for generative AI, right? And so we started off with the problem that is a perfect fit and designed a system that would allow users to get more value of things they already have, right? Because the transaction doesn't always have to be monitored, right? If a user is getting more value from the product that you're creating, you're going to get higher retention. And so driving that value, driving that retention with our customers has been a key principle for us. And that has really helped us. So we built this generative AI framework that takes all the intelligence research of the last 25 years. And you can go in there and you can ask questions about any topic, any report. And what it does is it gets you to 70% of your answer in about 6 seconds. There's still some work you have to do, right? Like the model will find if you're, let's say, looking for completion techniques in the morning. It's going to find out the last 5 reports or wherever it finds the best information. It will give you citations of like, hey, here is page number 6 in report B, page number 3 in report C. These are valuable things for you to read. And the users will then go and read those couple of pages, get better context. But the time to discovery has been shortened significantly. And we've done tests on this, and we've seen efficiency gains of like almost 80% on productivity for analysts doing this kind of research. So that's been like one of the first things that we're doing. And then as we see further, we are now integrating generative AI into areas like our business intelligence and dashboarding system, which is Prism, and that is leveraging frameworks that I'm really excited about, which is agentic frameworks, right? How do you take a generative AI task-oriented system and almost convert it into a function that does that one thing really well? But then if you chain enough of those tasks together, you can create an entire workflow with key decision points driven by AI within certain guardrails. So really excited about that as well. That's another thing that we are very actively working on.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Akash, and that's great to hear. Now, for what advice would you have, Akash, for oil and gas companies or oil and gas software companies who are looking to start their generative AI journey? What would be like the do's and don'ts? Would you like to share with them of generative AI?
That's a great question. I think, man, the biggest thing I would say is find the right use case, right? Period. Gen AI models will not become your one-stop solution for everything on day one. Be realistic about what it's able to do. Find the one problem that it can solve, and then focus on that. I've had a lot of customers who've tried to incorporate generative AI within their own frameworks. We have talked to them and sort of talk about how to approach their roadmap and things like that. And the idea being as an oil and gas company, I want to just go and tell them hey, this is the API number or UWI number. Tell me everything about this well. It can go and retrieve that data. Then you want to ask a follow-up, how should I design wells like this? That's a completely different task, right? So a single model is going to falter if you actually do not create a framework that is scalable. And so my only advice would be start with a small use case, start with the use case that is truly can be impacted by this, because once you build that, it becomes much more easier to scale from there. And the other biggest thing is most companies don't have Gen AI experts. We didn't have Gen AI experts. We now have a really good bench of developers, and experts that know generative AI really well. But this technology came out in September 2022. The hallmark paper that transformer architecture is based out came out in 2017. So the couple of experts that knew what the architecture looks like have been around for 7 years, and any sort of application-based experts have been around for 18 to 24 months. That's a very small pool of people. So starting with a smaller project, you can see validation, you can understand pitfalls, and you can start to create a bench of experts internally that can then develop on any further roadmap on this.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Akash. Now, in terms of future innovation trends in the energy tech sector, where do you see it going, and how is ENVIRIS going to be tapping on to those trends? Could you share more on that?
So I think I see a much greater convergence of AI, traditional petroleum engineering practices, energy transition, research and technologies, all of these coming together. In the next, and I know this part is going to be wrong, but the next, let's say 3 to 5 years, I expect that automated workflows, predictive analytics, and generative AI integration into solutions will become a lot more mainstream, right? When I talk about generative AI integration into this, it's the impact of smaller efficiency gains is so much more than having one master model that does everything for you. And that's where I think is going to start becoming a big part of it, right? With a stronger focus on how we remain optimized, we remain streamlined, but also optimized for cost and efficiency as the industry is going through this transformation and the demand for energy is only going up, right? This is a three-body problem essentially, where you need more demand, but you want to optimize and you want to do it sustainably. You need gray matter for it, right? And generative AI has the potential to be that almost Iron Man suit for engineers to help them go through this journey. So I see a lot more integration, a lot more of these workflows coming together. And then from ENVIRIS' standpoint, a lot of the work that we are doing is in that vein, right? A big part of the development that is outside of my team, but that our organization is very heavily focused on, is our asset development framework, right? So no longer thinking of an oil and gas asset as hey, here's how you can do production forecasting. Here's how you can do geological analysis. But how do we look at it as an end-to-end solution? How do we actually bring all these words together? Because the efficiency losses in translating things between silos within organizations are going to become increasingly hard to accept, right? The geologist, the engineer, the financial analyst, the supply chain expert all need to seamlessly be talking more and more the same language, right? And I'm not saying this is a problem that exists in every company, but there are organizations, a lot more, that have some of these challenges. So we are building a lot of frameworks that help support systems like that. And I think that's where the industry is also going to go, leveraging all these technologies that are coming up.
Thank you so much, Akash. Now, shifting our conversation to from a career standpoint of view, you're such a seasoned product leader in the energy tech space. For somebody who's looking to follow your footsteps, what sort of advice would you have in terms of acquiring certain soft skills or hard skill sets? Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, man. Let's see. I think a lot of the work that I've done and the direction my career has gone into, I think was a lot less planned, let's say. But what I would say is always focus on preparation, right? Like, opportunities to grow are hard to predict, but being prepared for those opportunities, that is important. So you control that is a big part of it. So one of the ways that I have always been open to is I have, regardless of where I'm in my career, when I started now or 10 years from now, I have always been open to learning new things and spending time and effort in actually learning new technologies. And not always necessarily even to add as a thing on my LinkedIn or my resume, right? Sometimes you just want to learn technologies because you want to open your mind to new ideas and new thought processes, right? So I would say to younger analysts and engineers, be open, be flexible. A lot of times I meet analysts who are very set in the type of analysis they want to do, especially like coming from engineering. I've met petroleum engineering engineers who specifically want to do like petroleum engineering work. I can tell you my career trajectory shifted completely after I decided that all I wanted to do was solve problems, right? All I wanted to do was getting stuff done. That was the core focus, right? And so that opened the horizon for not only things that I could learn, but also I wasn't boxing myself into, if it's not a production analysis, if it's not, reservoir modeling, then I'm not doing it, right? So I think it's important to have that open mind and then sort of continue to learn and stay curious. And if you do all of that, then you'll be prepared. And when the opportunity comes, it will come.
Absolutely. Very sound advice, Akash. And now, lastly, you're also an author and you speak in a variety of industry conferences. Would you kindly share what's the name of your book? Where can we find it? And what inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, so a lot of my authorship has happened mostly in like research papers and that manner. So you can find a lot of the research that I've done on One Petro, on AAPG's platform. I've also done contributory author work for a couple of Springer textbooks, but again, those are papers that get embedded into that. And as far as speaking engagements, this has definitely been a busy season of that. So a lot of those coming up. I think the next one that is coming up after this is going to be it's a couple of SPE events as well as a couple of AWS panels that I'm speaking on. But yeah, if you want to read any of the stuff that I've done, you'll most likely find them on One Petro.
Thank you so much, Akash, and wishing you all the best in your future speaking engagements.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So that concludes the formal portion of our interview for today, Akash. So we'd like to end our podcast with a fun segment called a rapid fire, where we get our viewers and listeners to learn a little bit more about the personal side of our guests. So as part of this rapid fire, I'll be asking you 3 quick questions. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Great, Akash. So firstly, as this is a tech podcast, would love to hear what's your favorite software app or hardware product that you enjoy using?
I feel like if I say ChatGPT, it'll be too straightforward. I do use it a lot. But honestly, I think if I take the Gen AI aspect out of it, it'll most likely have to be Trello. I use Trello for everything. I love I'm a very task-oriented person, so I like making lists and tickets. And for my personal things, how I organize my life, so Trello is probably the one that I use the most outside of actually a Gen AI system.
Great, Akash. Secondly, what's been a book that you've read that has had a big impact on your life and why?
So I think if it's okay, I'd like to give you 2, right? So there's one book that I've tried to learn from. It's really hard to, is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. There's a lot of really good things in there, but some of them are a little tough to actually emulate all the time. But it's probably the one that I think about a lot. But the one more recent in the last few years that has had probably the biggest impact is this book called How to Fly a Horse by Kevin Ashton. If you guys haven't read it, I would strongly recommend. It's only like 200-300 pages. And it is an incredible book that talks about the history of invention and creativity and how humans have evolved and innovated through the millennia. So that's another great book.
Thank you so much, Akash. And lastly, are there any final words of wisdom, perhaps a quote, a short story that you'd like to share with members of our audience?
I think there's something, since I mentioned the book, so I'll actually quote the book if that's okay. There was something in the book that has actually had the most profound impact on me, and which was essentially that, we blind the idea of innovation by thinking about it as a eureka moment or a light bulb idea. That is never usually the case. And if you read the book and you actually look through stories of innovation over the years, it is nothing more than hard-nosed effort that goes through every version of failure until you hit that success criteria. So the way to actually be innovative is to actually have the grit and the perseverance to find problems, find solutions, and then fail over and over again until you find it. And that truly is something that has resonated a lot with me and has allowed me to actually think through these problems more so as like small sprints of perseverance than this huge haul of finding innovation somewhere.
Thank you so much, Akash. So that concludes our interview for today. It's really been an honor and pleasure having you on the show. What is the best way our viewers and listeners can get in touch with you?
First of all, thank you so much, Arjun, for talking to me. This has been a really fun conversation. Anybody who wants to reach out to me, I am pretty active on LinkedIn, so they can find me on LinkedIn under my name and Veris. And I think that would probably be just reach out to me on LinkedIn, drop me a message, and I'm always happy to interact and chat about any and all things, ideas, innovation, AI, energy, all of it.
Thank you so much, Akash, and thank you so much for sharing your subject matter expertise on our show today. From the team at ENERGIZE, wishing you and the entire NVIDIA's digital product management team lots of growth and lots of success.
Thank you so much, Arjun.
For sure. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, our episode for today. And remember, you're one product away from transformation. I'm Arjun Chaudhary.